Power Project crew, welcome to today's show. This episode was recorded on April 1st, and it is with the one and only Thomas DeLauer. Thomas DeLauer has a huge YouTube following. He shares a bunch of information in regards to like fasting, even red light therapy, diet, nutrition, just a whole slew of things. Super smart guy, really fun, charismatic guy to be around. And today we got into a bunch of different things, specifically how the lockdown has affected his content and the viewership of his YouTube channel. And because of some of this, he's actually started changing some of his content, kind of more generalizing things instead of being super specific about certain things, almost dumbing it down a little bit just to try to reach a broader audience. But what really brought this whole thing together was we got a different side of Thomas than any of us had ever seen. Mark had put out one of his multiple posts about the hashtag race to 0 followers. And Thomas just plain and simply was like, yeah, sign me up too. So we got into that, and we really just, we gave Thomas he called it a therapy session. We basically just let him vent for a little while, talking about where his frustrations come in from. You know, he explains he has 2 million subscribers on YouTube, and no matter how hard he tries, he absolutely just cannot please everybody. And there's always going to be somebody that has something smart to say. And what brought this up was a post that he made on the Mediterranean ketogenic diet. Somebody went off and he was just like, that was it. That was the last straw. I'm going to join Mark on the race to 0. Obviously, neither one of them are serious. Well, actually, maybe Mark really is serious. But that was the gist. That was the main reason why we made this podcast happen. So on top of that, we did talk about the Mediterranean keto diet. We asked him, basically, does food quality or does meat quality matter? Can a hamburger patty from In-N-Out be the same as like a grass-fed, grass-finished hamburger patty, along with like processed meats and all that stuff? Really, we were just excited to be able to have an opportunity to talk to Thomas DeLauer. And Nsima mentioned several times that he was just fangirling the whole time. So it was really cool to see that, and really just to have Thomas on the show. Super quick as possible. Please make sure you guys are taking advantage of markbell.com. Markbell.com is an easy way for you guys to gain access to all of Mark Bell's workouts. Every single day, a brand new workout. And right now, he's giving out a free 30-day trial. So just head over to markbell.com, sign up, and you have access to the entire website for 30 days for absolutely free. And also on that website, there is a huge emphasis on body weight movements, slingshot movements, and hip circle movements. So you already have the body weight. All you need now is the hip circle and the slingshot. Head over to markbellslingshot.com right now, and you can receive 20% off any slingshot and hip circle combo. Add any slingshot of your choice, add any hip circle of your choice, and you'll receive 20% off. And while you're there, please make sure you guys check out the new colorways of the gangsta wraps. Man, they're so dope. There's the red one, the white one, and then like a gray and red one. Dude, straight fire. And also we have kids hip circles too. For a lot of parents, I know we have to have PE at home now, and we have to stay indoors as much as possible. It's really cool to be able to have a hip circle for the kiddos. So please check those out. And ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the show. Dude, Mark, what's for dinner, man?
I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to go home and reverse sear a 36-ounce tomahawk ribeye from Certified Piedmontese. I'm going to take that bad boy. I'm going to throw it in the oven for a few minutes on a cast iron pan, and then after that, I'm going to take it out and I'm going to sear it in the pan on the stove. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to throw some butter on that. Going to make some amazing food porn.
Wow, that like, I used to think that it was only fat, like really high fat, because I love ribeyes, that really contributed to like a steak tasting good. But like, Piedmontese, the ribeyes I think have like 6 to 8 grams of fat compared to 20 other places, and they're so tender and juicy and succulent.
On top of all that, they'll deliver it right to your door. I don't know how. It's best of all worlds. You guys got to check this out. It's Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping.
Yeah, so today we're going to have Thomas DeLauer on. I'm really excited to have him on. I'm kind of curious what he's talking about. We got into a small text back and forth this morning, and he was saying how he's kind of frustrated with social media. He said he's done, and he said, count me in on the race to 0 followers. But I did see that he put up a post about the Mediterranean Mediterranean version of the keto diet, which Mediterranean diet's kind of keto-esque, kind of as it is. And maybe he got a lot of like blowback from that. Maybe he's pissed about that. And funny enough is last night I had 2 hot dogs and 2 Flying Dutchmen. So my thing was the exact opposite of like the direction that he's heading in. But I think if anyone's to kind of just use their head, I think that anything that's natural, from, you know, things that come from the earth, things that are pretty obvious that they're meant for us to eat, I don't think they can really cause you much harm. And I think that you could try to overeat them, but I think over a period of time, you eventually probably would choose not to, especially if you weren't adding a lot of weird sauces and crap to the food. If you kept the ingredients mild, I think if you're eating rice and potatoes and steak and chicken and fish, along with vegetables and fruit, I think you would live a very powerful and very healthy life.
Yeah, the Mediterranean keto thing that he did, I think he made a video about it. It was like 2 or 3 months back. It was really interesting because like I've never heard somebody talk about keto like that. Or, I mean, yeah, there's keto, but yeah, he formulated it in a very specific way, and he's done that a lot with a lot of other things too. So it's going to be interesting what problem he has right now.
You guys have the ability to look up what the Mediterranean diet is. I'm just on my phone, so I don't have access to anything else. But maybe you can get a definition. My understanding is that you are eating like some olives and olive oil and almonds and things of that nature. You're trying to get in the kind of quote unquote. They used to be called like healthy fats, but I guess we would just maybe call them unsaturated fat. And I think that's kind of part of the goal, is to get more fish and more of those types of fats in your diet. Not really necessarily saying that saturated fat is bad, because we know that saturated fat is not necessarily bad. But I think that there's the bad rap on saturated fat has been, you know, people think it comes from like a quarter pounder with cheese from McDonald's or something like that. But over a period of time, people have kind of recognized that, hey, it's not just the cheeseburger itself. It's not the burger. It's not the meat. It's not the cheese. It's the combination of eating all that, because that's a surplus of calories, with the bread, with the bun, and with the French fries, and with the chocolate shake that you wash it all down with.
Yeah. So Google says the foundation of the Mediterranean diet is vegetables, fruits, herbs, nuts, and whole grains. Meals are built around these plant-based foods. Moderate amounts of dairy, poultry, and eggs are also central to the Mediterranean diet, as is seafood. In contrast, red meat is eaten only occasionally.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have lived over 100 years old. You know, these centenarian people that people talk about here and there. A lot of them, they do eat some meat, but they have red meat once or twice a week. So it'd be interesting to kind of hear his take on some of that. And I always think the answer lies somewhere in the middle. So to me, what he's saying sounds very rational, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this, Mark. Why is it that, because I know you do eat fish, obviously, like I've seen you kill sushi before, like in the past you ate like sushi, right? But I don't see you eat fish as much. And obviously you can eat fish on a carnivore diet. So do you just like not like it that much, or is it you just don't care?
Oh, there we go. I do like fish, and I eat it whenever I have an opportunity to, but I don't normally cook fish at home is the main thing.
I got you.
Look at this handsome guy.
And the beard connects.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it does, huh? Look at that. Can we hear him yet?
Can you got me? You got me?
Yeah, we got you, buddy.
What's up, man? Are you coastal, or are you in Sac right now?
I'm in Bodega Bay. So,
Heck
yep.
You know, that's my old stomping grounds. You know that, right?
Yeah, you were telling me that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So we got Andrew Zaragoza on the podcast as well. He's our podcast engineer. And then we have Nsima Inyang is our podcast host as well. Awesome to have you on the show, man. Really excited to get an opportunity to chat with you. How has anything changed with your business? Anything changed? I mean, you do a lot of YouTube. You do millions of YouTube videos. So That's probably, the same, right?
Nah, it's weird. People's minds are in a different place right now, though. So it's not, and rather than trying to be something I'm not, I've stayed the course, and I know that it's going to be a rough ride because people aren't, I shouldn't say rough. I mean, it's still fine, but people aren't interested in like how lean they can get, or they're not interested in intermittent fasting right now. It's just not their thing. I mean, they are to a degree, but I think it's going in one ear and out the other because there's an underlying sort of sense of fear and panic for people right now. So it's, and rather than pivot and try to just do a bunch of, like COVID content, I just, that's not me. I want to talk about what I want to talk about. And, so yeah, I've seen a dip, probably about a 30 to 40% dip in viewership, but it's all run in parallel with the Google trends on keto and fasting right now anyway.
Yeah. And then, have you kind of paused some of the stuff, cause you probably have a lot of content that you already shot. So you're just kind of holding on to that and some other time.
So much like you, I mean, we're content machines. So usually a video that like I'm filming today isn't airing for 3 months. So like right now we had a lot of content that was filmed back in, January and earlier. However, most of the content we had filmed was much more geared towards summer weight loss, things like that, getting people in that mode, which we're pushing that all back a little bit and inserting some different, more entertaining content. I just don't know if people are in the headspace to have dense science right now. I think people just want lighthearted stuff.
Yeah, in regards to
go ahead, Andrew.
Just in regards to the more lighthearted stuff, have you thought about maybe doing any kind of like just general health stuff, like really dumbing everything down? And this stems from a post that I had put out on the Power Project Instagram, where basically saying like, a lot of good stuff has come from all of this. Like people are all of a sudden now really interested in being healthy, whereas before they kind of were just like, whatever, not washing their hands. Yeah. And then now all of a sudden it's like, oh, somebody coughs, I don't want to be around you anymore. So has some of the content maybe switched towards like just kind of dumbing everything down even further?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely dumbing it down. It's a little off brand for me to dumb it down generally because I like to go dense. So I've tried that, which is like, okay, it's really hard for me to not, I was such a nerd growing up and so bullied all the time. It's like, I always feel like I have to justify with science, right? It's like at first phase of my life, I justified with muscles. And then I realized that didn't do shit. Oops, sorry. And then so then I was like, okay, well, let me at least try to be smart. So when I try to dumb things down, people actually really do appreciate it, but it's getting over my own mental blocks with that. And yes, it has worked, very basic, okay, foods that, help out your immune system, very simple things that I would say normally, people don't want to see that. It's too basic. But I think, much like you guys, I mean, household names within the industry, people are going to trust even basic information from us. So yes, I have done that, and it's actually performed quite well. And then I'm trying to bridge a gap between the kind of things I normally talk about and perhaps the immune system. Okay, obviously I talk about fasting, I talk about keto a lot. Let's bridge the gap and see how those actually play in with the immune system, and at least keep that relevant too.
I was actually curious.
Go ahead, Nsima.
I was curious about that. Since you were mentioning a little bit of fasting and the immune system, I'm guessing you're making some content for that. What would, if we're going to simplify a tier list of things that people can do from like 1 to 3 or 1 through 5, what would you have an individual start with to, I guess, boost their immune system nowadays? I know you've probably made a video about it, but
you're good.
Yeah.
So I always start with, okay, so you're born with your immune system. You can't necessarily boost it, right? All you can do is give yourself, what the problem is that we live in a world where we're not giving our immune system what it needs to properly function. So it's not like you can take something that's going to, quote, boost your immune system. Like your innate immune system, you have. It's just generally not living to its full potential because it's getting compromised, right? So compromised by so much chronic inflammation that's going on. So, it's because your immune system's working on other things. It's like your immune system's too busy fighting off the garbage that you ate to actually be able to pay attention to the virus that's coming in. And that's really what it comes down to. That's where, keto, carnivore, fasting, all those things obviously come into play because that modulates that inflammation. I'm touching on this just for a second because I'm going to make a point with it. I have been recommending that people that aren't adapted to fasting and stuff don't fast right now because it is still a hormetic stressor. It's still going to compromise your immune system, and you can't just crash diet your way into avoiding this thing. Like, it's not, if you crash diet your way into avoiding this thing, you're going to stress your body out. Like, the whole purpose of, even with carnivore, with fasting, with keto, you're eliciting a stress response on your body so that your body gets stronger, just like going to the gym. And if you are worried about contracting something, you're not going to go to the gym and go balls to the wall and destroy yourself, because you know your immune system's going to be compromised. Same kind of thing with your diet. You shouldn't be putting yourself in a ridiculous caloric deficit. Point is with that is, in terms of the foods that are going to make a difference, despite what some people say, I am a firm believer in megadosing vitamin C. Now that's me. And I've studied Linus Pauling for years before I was even doing this stuff on YouTube. And personally, when you look at how vitamin C really does work in the body, it makes perfect sense. We don't produce it, but you look at every single mammal that does produce it, and what do you know? Like, their levels go up tremendously to like serum levels of like 70, 80,000 milligrams in their blood, naturally produced when they are stressed or when they're around an illness. Like goats, for instance, are like the crazy one. Goats naturally have between 10 and 15,000 milligrams of vitamin C that are being produced endogenously within their body. Humans don't produce vitamin C. Okay. Goats, when they are exposed to stress, and this has been shown in studies, when they get exposed to stress or illness, those levels go up from 10 to 100x within their blood. Because any immune cell that gets activated needs vitamin C. The hard part is you don't need vitamin C until you need vitamin C. So like loading up on vitamin C when you have no problem does you diddly squat. So it's like you have to be in touch with your body enough to know I'm sleep deprived, or I'm stressed, or I've been training really hard. Mark, I don't know if you remember, like back in the day, like when I was doing more bodybuilding stuff, like it was actually commonly talked about for hypertrophy right after a workout to actually megadose vitamin C. We always used to take like, echinacea and load up on echinacea because we were trying to counteract some of that cortisol effect. So it's kind of funny how like even my old bodybuilding stuff kind of comes back full circle into this world. So vitamin C. And then even in the antioxidant world, like I've been loading up on like olive oil extracts, so like more concentrated forms of olive oil. So I'm not getting a bunch of the calories from it, but I'm getting more of just the antioxidant effect, the hydroxytyrosine, which is pretty powerful. But other than that, quite honestly, I'm using this time to focus a little bit more on just mobility and recovery stuff, so that I'm just not taxing the crap out of my body.
Hey, don't goats like pass out if they get overstressed? Or is that sheep?
That's a weird breed of goats, but I'm going to start just doing that. And that's a great.
I think if you yell at them, they just pass out, right?
Stiffen up.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of like, that's exactly what I should just start doing. Someone yells at me, collapse right there.
What triggered you to text me this morning about wanting to join the race to zero followers?
I've been laughing just for the last couple of weeks seeing you just doing that, and like I was telling my wife yesterday, I was like, I respect that so much, and she's just like, man, you're the same way. She's like, you should just do the same damn thing. She's like, and it was
let her rip every once in a while, right?
I posted something this morning, and it was the tipping point. I posted something this morning talking about. Well, first of all, I have to back up. When you have, you have a large following, you get it. Okay. So I've got, over 2 million subscribers on YouTube. I can't possibly be preaching gospel for one specific thing to those 2.2 million people, right? Like I have to just put the information out there and say, these are tools in your toolbox, use them how you apply. I eat certain ways, but I experiment with everything. Like this is how I am. So a lot of people that are like avid followers of my channel know that. They know that like I'm going to put the information out there. They can take what they want from it, and they can extrapolate bits and pieces and studies from where they want. I put a piece out on Mediterranean keto, which is pretty interesting stuff. And the reason that I was am a fan of Mediterranean keto, not necessarily for my own diet, but just in general, is because I feel like it allows people to accept the ketogenic diet that normally wouldn't, because it's widely known that the Mediterranean diet throughout the medical community is probably the most advocated diet. Like people will say Mediterranean is good. So when you couple Mediterranean with keto, like it or not, people that are normally totally opposed to the keto diet are willing to give it a chance. And we all know that like when people start trying that, then they feel good. And then they go to the next place, and then they might try carnivore, and then they might try fasting, and then they find what truly works for them. So I think it's a great barrier. Well, some clown decided to say, well, he went there. I couldn't believe he went there and said, oh, well, Italians are Mediterranean, and look at how it's working for them. Whoa.
Jesus.
So now we can go there. Now it's cool to go there. So first we ridicule the crap out of anyone that's Asian, but now we're ridiculing Italians because their medical system has some flaws, and it's their fault because they're Mediterranean. Oh, and I'm just like, I lost it. And I'm just like, and then the amount of people that actually agreed, I'm just like, there's so much anger and negativity out there right now. I'm just like, you know what? This whole thing has given me just a perspective to just be like, I'm going to be me. I've tried to be whoever I want to be, or whoever these people want me to be, for over 2 million people. And it's going to kill me. It's going to kill me. And I don't have the energy for it anymore. So to hell with it. They're going to like it or they're going to leave, because I'm just like, and I'm tired of just trying to race algorithms and beat algorithms for a certain thing. I'd rather have 100,000 concrete followers that are actually going to A, trust what I say, B, buy the things that I recommend, because at the end of the day, like, I will recommend things that I think are of value to people and are of value to me, but I also have to pay bills. So if you're someone that is just drawing information from me to turn around and spew it in my face and be negative, then there's the door. And I think that's a lot of your take too. It's really hit me recently with how much negativity is out there. Man, anyway, I could go on and on, but it's just,
yeah. Some of it kind of has started for me, like kind of long ago, really, with YouTube than anything else. But it was kind of when YouTube started to really like spike, and I was already like into YouTube. I was early on, in 2008. And as I saw like these kind of trends hitting, and then people making these certain videos and getting certain responses from it, it just made me kind of think like, okay, these people are just trying to monetize what they're doing. And so they're following the trends. It makes a lot of sense, because then they're getting seen by more people. And for myself, I was like, you know what? Fuck all that. I'm already making money. I'm already doing well. I'm not going to concern myself with it. And so I've tried my best, and it's impossible. And anyone would probably be lying if they said that they're not dictated by the audience. I mean, you are, you're dictated by the likes, you're dictated by the, and then the likes, it's like, who even knows what Instagram does with that, how they, how much they share with people, like, cause they maybe don't want you to get as many likes or whatever. And it gets to be kind of a complicated thing. And it's a weird thing. You get like your identity halfway stolen from you, because you're trying to placate to the audience, because we do care about the audience. We do care about the listeners. We want to make the listeners happy. We want them to be excited about stuff. But on the other hand, you just want to share like, hey, I had a cool day with my kids. And then people make some stupid comment about your kid, and you're like, oh my God, this is just ridiculous.
Or you're like, yeah, someone's going to freaking come and like call CPS on your kid because you didn't hold your kid's hand the last foot of a crosswalk. Like, again, it's, right. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. And so it's like, I don't want to blame people, that are just viewing the channel, because I feel like they're just in the same boat. They just don't realize it, right? They're algorithmically driven. Their lives are algorithmically driven by what they're getting shown now. And it's like feed the beast. It's just like with neuroplasticity. If you give yourself a bunch of negative thoughts, you're going to suddenly start thinking negative. Well, we have this artificial stimulus that's also doing that. So people that are negative, it's going to continue to feed them more negative crap, just like the news, right? It's like, so yeah, it's just like, you know what? I've got my second kiddo about to be born, and I'm just like, if you don't like what I have to say, and I'm not going to be a jerk, it's not in my nature to be a jerk, but if you don't like what I'm putting out there, then like, don't watch, go away. Like, it's all good. Like, I'm trying to help people. I'm going to continue to try to help people. Why? Because it feels good, and it's what I get fulfillment out of. And if you get fulfillment out of it, then great. It's not a self-fulfilling prophecy, but we'd all be lying if we didn't say that we do something because it feels good. In essence, you could say that someone that gives everything to charity and donates is a selfless person. Well, in theory, that's wrong, because they're being selfish because that makes them feel good. So just because they're giving to charity because it makes them feel good, they don't selflessly give to charity, because that would be absolutely reckless. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're saying that someone that gives up everything is a selfish person in that theory? So I'm going to talk about what feels good to talk about, and what I feel is right, and what works for me, and what I feel might work for people. And if they want to, whatever. I don't know.
Only
it feels good. Thanks for being my therapist. Has been out because
there you go.
I like it. I
was going to say, only Thomas DeLauer can use a term like neuroplasticity in regards to social media. But I mean, when Instagram and all these social media platforms get rid of likes, do you think that's going to open up the floodgates for people to be more themselves?
It's a good question.
And that question actually comes straight directly from Gary V, because he's saying, once we get rid of the likes, people aren't going to like post the perfect photo because they want to get 100 likes, or when they post the photo and it doesn't get 80 likes in the first 2 seconds, they take it right back down. So when there's no likes, there's no a margin of like, oh, this was a good photo. They're now going to just like, yeah, this is a picture of my lunch or whatever, whatever it may be. Yeah. But I think hopefully there won't be a need for a race to 0 followers. There won't be a need to be like, say any inflammatory statements or anything. I think it will allow people like you, all of us, to just be ourselves.
Yeah, there's definitely, for sure. And I don't know if they're planning on getting rid of the visibility of likes to the original poster too, but I still think there's going to be that internal validation that's going to come that way, right? Like, we still check our stats. And anyone that successfully runs a business online, knows that, in God we trust, and everything else give me data. So it's like, I want data on things. That's how I make decisions. But I also try to look at it very analytically and try to objectively look at data, because there's lots of different variables. But I think in general, just the pulse of how people are going to look at it is going to be way different, because they're not going to compare, me to Dr. Berg, and they're not going to compare, they're not going to, that comparison is going to be gone. So there's going to be a level of, I think, openness that comes with where they get their information. And I also think it's going to weed out a lot of the influencers that are trying to make a buck in a, kind of an underhanded way, right? Because that gets exposed really quick, because now initially it opens the floodgates where there's no public data. So someone could go out and say, oh, well, this person has 500,000 followers, but their engagement might be crap. And then someone's going to come to them and ask them to do a sponsored post, and it's going to flop. That's going to weed people out really quick. And I think it's going to change it's going to change how we navigate and how that world is navigated. But then for the people that actually have their own brands, like Mark and like myself, that actually are fine at monetizing it just by being ourselves and just by being good business people that are ethical, I think it's going to improve how we function. So, long story short, I do think it's going to weed it out. It's definitely going to weed it out.
How do you feel that adjustment's going to be for yourself? Because honestly, I pay attention to a lot of your content, especially your YouTube content, and it doesn't seem like you are currently trying to cater to anyone. Like, you kind of alluded to that a little bit. It doesn't seem that you're doing that as it is. So I'm just wondering, like, what is like really going to change for yourself? Because like the content you put out, it seems like from a viewer's point of view, it seems like these are things that you're interested in, and it's not like you're trying to cater to a certain type of viewership.
Yeah, seems right? Original for sure.
Yeah, I don't give two craps about views. I just don't. And it's just, I went through that phase, but it's a headache. It's a headache. And, I like to just put the content out. If the content will naturally do well for who it's supposed to cater to, which is going to give me a more concrete following in that avenue. If I post up a video surrounding immunity and some subset meathead group doesn't care, I don't think, well, first of all, they're probably not going to get served that content to begin with, but also, like, who cares? Like, they may not like that, but the people that are going to discover that video in the evergreen fashion a year or 2 years down the line are going to appreciate it that much more, because I'm speaking about it with passion, because I want to talk about it. And I decided I just don't want to create content I don't want to create. Like, it's a lot of work to create content, and it's a lot more fun to create it when you're truly passionate about it. And sometimes I can be passionate about something that doesn't have a practical application in my life, but it is just really cool research. And that's where it's a little difficult right now, is because, you've got your devout followers that watch everything you put out, but don't necessarily comprehend that you just put out information that is fun and interesting. So then they think you're contradicting, because, oh, well, how can you put out a video talking about, olive oil being beneficial, but then talk about the benefits of carnivore? Well, I didn't say that I'm doing both. I said, like, here, like, take what you need. So I've made that decision that, like, for me to be dogmatic would be absolutely detrimental to my brand. It's much better off for me to not chase views, and for me to not build this cult, and to build more of just people that embrace education as a whole, because then where I want to go in the future with my brand, I at least have the respect of people that just want to get educated.
What is this Mediterranean keto thing about?
I mean, ultimately, they're what I would call perpendicular diets, right? They're not. Mediterranean diet isn't really a diet. It's just an influence of types of foods from a region, that are high polyunsaturated, high monounsaturated fats, which quite frankly, on even a carnivore diet, if done properly, you should be getting a good amount of good monounsaturated fats. If you're eating like good, if you're choosing the right sources of meat ultimately. And it doesn't even have to do with grass-fed, grass-finished, to be honest. It has to do, because I know it all depends, right? It's such a negligible amount of omega-3s. It's like, you could just like, it doesn't really matter all that much. Point is that it's all the region. So when you look at, okay, these are the kinds of foods that are within a given region, and then here's where keto intersects. Keto is not necessarily, in my opinion, a diet. It is more of a molecular kind of process in the body, and that it can be achieved multiple ways. You can achieve keto through just not eating. You can achieve keto by going carnivore. You can achieve keto by just drinking olive oil, or you can follow a traditional sort of Americanized ketogenic diet or therapeutic keto diet. I think Mediterranean just gives you just the abundance of different, phytonutrients that you might want in a typical diet that you might be neglecting in a typical dirty keto diet. Because the nice thing with like carnivore, for instance, is carnivore, you're eliminating all the negative influence in terms of your diet. That's what makes carnivore so great. It's not the fact that meat is this is my opinion, not the fact that meat is all healing. It's the fact that by the absence of all this other stuff, you leave your body no choice but to thrive on some really good nutrients that you're getting out of meat. It's not that veggies are bad. It's not that a little bit of peanut butter is bad. It's that you're making a conscious choice to be able to influence ketosis this way.
Peanut butter.
Do you miss peanut butter?
Let's all pause for a minute and think about some peanut butter for a second.
Yeah, I love peanut butter. Just see you like eating beef tallow, just imagining that it's peanut butter. It's like spray paint it.
Yeah, it's not gonna work, right?
Yeah. So Mediterranean keto is just, for me, it's more about just getting a high degree of monounsaturated fats that just have a really good benefit overall when it comes down to like receptor proteins like PPAR alpha and all these things that just have downstream metabolic effects, and from an anti-inflammatory standpoint. So in the general world of just basic diets that are talked about, Mediterranean diet is the most anti-inflammatory. Well, you couple that with the ketogenic diet, which is naturally inherently anti-inflammatory. You've got a very anti-inflammatory diet that a lot of people can wrap their heads around.
And what's some of your thoughts on like cured meats, fast food? Maybe these meats that maybe aren't considered high quality. Like, what are your thoughts, theories, and concerns in those regards?
Believe it or not, I don't have much of a concern with a lot of the properly cured meats. I eat a fair bit of prosciutto. Like, I love prosciutto. I think, like if you're comparing prosciutto and salami, salami usually has a lot more crap in it, right? The general rule of thumb with cured meats, what I would always say is anything is going to store in the fat. Most toxins are going to store in the fat, right? So if you're eating cured meats, your safer bet is to go with just a leaner cured meat, right? Like, it's just like, because if there are going to be preservatives, if there are going to be crap in it, at least it's going to store in the fat. So like prosciutto, just given the cut that it is, that ribbon of fat that's on the outside of prosciutto, you could just peel it off, right? And then, so like when you look at pork, it's actually a pretty good fatty acid profile, believe it or not. But the nice thing about pork is, and same thing with bacon, is if you get it has the ribbon that's along the outside, that is pure saturated fat, which is usually not denatured. It's usually not, it's the polyunsaturated fats you have to be careful with in any kind of meat, right? With any kind of meat, it's going to be, that's what's going to be fragile. That's what's going to get exposed in curing processes and heating processes. So you try to aim for the fats that have or cuts that have a higher saturated fat content. And that way you can at least peel the fat off if you wanted to. But with salami, it's hard because it's so marbled in. That's my take on it. But like I said, I love prosciutto. I love good quality ham. And that's a big part of Mediterranean diets. What do you know? It's, I personally
what about rolling through some fast food?
Well, it's funny you say that, because literally the next video that I'm doing after I do this is we're going to roll through the El Pollo Loco and grab their new keto taco and do a review of it, which is my opinion. I'm just going to talk on that one really quick. I'll let it be heard here. That is some sneaky marketing that they've thrown in there. It's literally a wheat tortilla that is by no means keto friendly, but they think because it has some fiber in it, like, it's just either completely naive or completely underhanded. So, but El Pollo Loco, believe it, like, their chicken isn't that bad. It does have some yeast extract, which is basically MSG. But the Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. is probably one of the cleaner burgers. So I would say that. So,
really?
Where you're at. Yeah. So it's definitely one of the cleaner burgers. And then Wendy's is actually a clean burger. The patty itself is pretty darn clean. can't really go. And the funny thing is actually, ironically, McDonald's burger patties are much better than like the ground beef that you're going to get from Taco Bell or the ground meat you're going to get from Jack Black. So in the world of burgers, the McDonald's burgers aren't nearly as bad as they used to be. Like Taco Bell meat is really bad, but so it's not, I don't know. I mean, I have a video that just like killed on YouTube that I put up a couple of years ago on just like best top 10, keto fast food options. Chipotle has a good keto bowl that's pretty darn solid if you want to consider that fast food or not. I'm not a big fan of getting animal fat from poultry. If I'm going to get fat, again, I don't know how closely people follow what I put out, but I'm usually a fan. I eat a lot of meat. I eat a lot of protein. I am not the biggest fan of fattier cuts of meat. And the only reason I'm not is because it's hard for me to control. Like I could take a ribeye that has 22 grams of fat or put a ribeye right next to it that has 40 grams of fat. And it's really hard for me to tell. And I'm pretty analytical with my food. So that's my big reason. But then when you look at the fatty acid profile, like the fatty acid profile of poultry fat is terrible. Beef fat is actually quite good. Pork fat is actually quite good. Duck is actually quite good. But most like chicken and turkey is not very good. So your poultry options at fast food, you're not going to really find anything that's that great. So you're always better to lean for the beef whenever you can. So is there any one in particular that you're curious about? Because there's so many. Well,
I usually go to like In-N-Out Burger or like Five Guys and stuff like that. And it seems like the most offensive thing you can get there is the cheese, if you're just eating the burgers,
I'm a Five Guys fan. I'm a Five, and I'll even do Habit. It's Habit's actually pretty clean too. And you're going to have, you could always again make the argument on grain fed, but it's all a delta of where you're like how much omega-6s you're getting in. Like if you're balancing and you're making sure that you're getting omega-3s from other sources, then the omega-6s that you're getting from the grain-fed meat's not going to be the end of the world. So you're going to have that argument no matter what. People are always going to say that fast food is going to be bad for that reason. But at the end of the day, what are you after? Like, are you after staying committed? Are you after staying on what you're after? Or are you trying to, again, like appease every single one of your followers, right?
Yeah.
So In-N-Out's clean. Five Guys is clean. Fuddruckers, although it's not really fast food, like actually it's got some pretty clean stuff. And they've got that elk one and everything like that too, which is like $24 or whatever it is. But still, it's damn good.
Yeah. Thomas, as a guy that's come from being really, really heavy, because I don't know what your peak weight was, but you talk about it every now and then. And so where you are now, you've done a lot of different diets. You've made videos. You've done 30 days of carnivore, 30 days of this and that. And then you've done reviews on it, which is awesome. But I'm curious as to like currently, do any of the bad habits you used to have when you were overweight ever show themselves, even though you're super in shape now? And then also, personally, what kind of diet do you personally feel the best utilizing as an individual?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So yes, they absolutely do rear their ugly heads all the time. Old habits die hard. It's definitely, I have a tendency to, just want to just cave and just, I think everybody does, I don't think anybody's just like a machine like they might put out in social media, especially right now when everyone's stuck at home. I mean, it's just like I'm bored and we go to the pantry. I'm either go to the pantry, make a video, or try to monetize something. Like that's the three ways my brain's going to work. I'm just like, okay, well, crap. I'm tired of trying to make money. I'm tired of making a video. I guess I'll eat. And my wife's pregnant, so not really having sex right now. So what else can I do? Sorry.
It's true.
Oh, that's why he's so angry right now. That's like Thomas has got this like new. Oh, I go why he's anyhow. Sorry, is this too blunt for the podcast?
No,
I guess everyone's wives are different, because that wasn't the case with me.
No. It's she's got a high risk pregnancy, so she's got
gotcha.
She's got a placental abruption, so she's on modified bed rest and pelvic.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. So it's normally, trust me, it wasn't a problem with the first one, but anyhow. So that's as for old habits, definitely. And then right now, like I have found that I feel the best if I've been doing keto now for literally 10 years, and I think I'm so fat adapted that my body really does do well if I do variations of extended carb cycling where I'll actually go keto for 2 to 3 months and then go on carbs for a month. And when I do go on the carbs, I tend to do a lot more fasting that way. So I'm still, because what I'm finding and what I found literally just this last year is it's been so fascinating. If my protein levels are high, and I don't know if you watched my experiment that I did on the high protein thing, that was cool. I went high protein, low fat, and it was phenomenal. I kept my calories the same. Okay, so I dropped my fats significantly, but increased my proteins so that I was eucaloric and maintaining the same calories. Well, body fat percentage dropped over like almost 1.5% in 3 weeks, and my weight went up. And I'm like, okay, sure. Some of it could have been glycogen that's getting created from excess protein through gluconeogenesis. But I think there was something to be said there that like this whole always have to be high fat thing is not the way it needs to be. And especially when you're fat adapted. So I found that, okay, periodically alternating, like when I go high fat and then go low fat, high fat, low fat, and keep my body. So within this is kind of getting deep here for a minute, but we always talk about the process of being dual fueled, right? The goal with the ketogenic diet isn't to become a one-trick pony and only be able to utilize fats. Like that's just as bad as burning a bunch of glucose if you're only burning fats. Like the goal is you want to make yourself nice and have your body be kind of opportunistic, for lack of a better word. You want to be able to have your body burn fat when it needs to. But if I want to shift gears and I want to lift some heavy ass weight and I want my body to be more glycolytic, I want it to be able to shift gears and burn glucose with or without glucose coming in. See, the point is that your body will still burn glucose, right? It's still going to burn glucose even when you're keto, but you want it to be efficient at flipping that switch when it needs to. If I'm going to, go under a heavy bench, like I want my body to be good at that. And I don't want it to have that lag that some people talk about with keto. And the way that you can condition your body to do that, in my opinion, is through high protein, because high protein's excess protein is going to get converted into glucose and your body will find a need for it. It doesn't just store as fat. Protein doesn't just store as fat that easily. If you are creating extra glucose through extra protein, your body is going to do something with it. It's either going to burn it and give you energy, or it's going to store it as glycogen and give you energy in the gym. Are you following? Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Absolutely.
So more protein and I want to add more protein without adding a crap load of calories. So I go leaner protein. It's not because I'm anti-fat. It just makes more sense. And then the same thing applies with cycling in and out of carbohydrates properly, not going like 3 days keto, 1 day carbs, that you're never giving yourself a chance to adapt to one or the other. That's just like constantly sitting in a gray area. So I like to go keto and just go hardcore with a lot of keto and a lot of fasting for like 3 months, and then switch gears and let my body utilize glucose so it doesn't become glucose intolerant. Then I find when I'm back in keto, my body can flip that switch a lot quicker. And if I do have a cheat meal during like a stint of keto, I can have 200 or 300 grams of carbs at night and I can be back in keto within 24 hours, not fasting. Wow. And that's just a testament to like how your body is just able to flip those gears really quick.
Now, I'm actually curious about this. On the few months that you go, or the month that you go to carbohydrates when you're cycling, I'm just curious because I know everybody will end up eating a different amount based off the weight, the amount of muscle they have. But for you personally, being such a heavy muscle dude, what does that amount of carbohydrates average at for like a weekly period?
It's still not a ton. It's usually going to be like daily, it's going to be 150 to 200.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to get at. I was assuming it wasn't going to be something like 400 grams of carbs. Okay.
I just don't feel good when I have that many. I just, strength wise, like if I was only after brute strength, I'm not going to deny that. Yes, I would probably feel more strength, but like, it's like, I call it, it's totally an non-clinical term, but it's like an inflammation spillover. It's like, I just feel like my cells are just like, what the hell are you doing to me? Like, So I find like 200 is kind of that upper intake. And then I try to usually keep it low glycemic. I just keep it, I say responsible carbs, right? Just don't go eat sugar and crap. So
I used to eat before big bench workouts. I had what I called bench bagels, and I would get salted bagels and just load up. I'd have like 3 or 4 of them, but it'd make me so like bloated and puffy that I'd feel just insanely strong. And I think it's kind of a funny thing. I don't know like what the science would show, but sometimes maybe the inflammation isn't necessarily a bad thing, and maybe the gluten and everything, like maybe it does something for you. But I don't know. It always felt like it worked. And when I look back at stuff like that, I'm thinking like, could there have been something different that I could have done that could have been more optimal? It's like, oh yeah, you can always look back and kind of say that, but that's what it felt right to me at the time. And I know some of my friends and stuff like that, they had their own foods that they would go to, like a couple guys would eat Doritos because Doritos had so much salt in it. It was just a way to like stuff in a ton of sodium. Obviously not a very healthy practice to do any of this, but it did make you feel strong. Right.
No, seriously. Like, I mean, it's just internal leverage, right? It's the same reason that creatine works. It's not, creatine isn't like, you're not getting this massive amount of like ATP regeneration. Like that's bullcrap. No, what's happening is you're stretching the cell out because it's hyperhydrated, and you have osmotic sensors in your, sarcoplasm that's going to trigger that. It's going to sense that. So it senses like the cell is engorged, and it says, so it triggers anabolism. It's straight up. So it's to protect the cell, right? So the same kind of thing when you hyperload with carbs and you drink a bunch of water and you load up the cell, those osmotic sensors say, oh gosh, this cell's engorged. In order to protect trauma, let's make this cell stronger and bigger. So the muscle cell gets bigger, and then you have more internal leverage and you're stronger. And that happens very, very fast. The downside is, of course, the inflammation cascade later on down the road. So it makes me wonder, like, if you had have been like, during like peak weeks and things like that, if you had have loaded up on carbs like that, but then during your actual training phases were more ketogenic, I just wonder how your body would have reacted. So,
yeah, I usually would switch back to keto as soon as the competition was over with, and I would lose a bunch of weight pretty rapidly. When you were doing your keto stuff and your carnivore style diet and stuff like that, have you noticed that your blood glucose goes up a little bit because you do get you are turning some of those proteins into sugar, basically?
Yeah, totally a normal thing. Yeah, especially when you're training, especially right after training. But yeah, you should check out that video I did about a month ago. It's really interesting because what I found was when my protein was higher, and it was dramatically higher. I mean, we're talking like 2x. So I was like well over 300 grams in some days, and I was having to get some from shakes, and it was all for, I say it was all for experiment. It was because I freaking wanted to. And then I turned it into an experiment later on, and I want to try to get some of the data published. But anyway, the point is that normally after a workout, my ketone levels would drop significantly. And that was kind of normal because you have liberated glucose because you're working out, and that's going to blunt ketogenesis. It's totally normal. But when my protein was super high, my ketones actually stayed the same and sometimes higher at the end of a workout. And we're like, what the heck is going on? Well, the theory behind that was that because I had so much glycogen, my body was actually able to just utilize that glycogen, and it wasn't having to like stop any ketogenic process. So it was that's the only theory that we have for it. But it was wild because normally I'd be knocked out of ketosis. I don't sit into a deep state of ketosis. And I think it has something to do with how just probably the muscle that I carry and just my training style, and the fact that I'm just always working out. My cortisol is probably always elevated. I never really have, my ketones are never much more than like 1 to 1.5 millimoles tops, unless I'm deep fasting. It's just the way I am. So after a workout, almost invariably, I'd be out of keto for at least an hour. And then what I was finding is, okay, well, when I kept a protein very high, I'd still be at like 1 to 1.5 millimoles, which was just so weird. Wow. I don't have a solid answer. I mean, I consulted with some of the friends that I have over at Oxford University who do a lot of ketone research, and they didn't really have an answer either, because they're like, well, we don't really have any data on people that have been doing keto for 10 years. They're like, your body is just so different. So I'm kind of a weird unicorn in that sense. But.
Yeah.
Earlier, I think you said the Mediterranean keto diet was a little bit easier for people to follow.
It's not necessarily as easy for people to follow. It's more so that it's easy for people to grasp, because what I'm always trying to do is like, how do I, for lack of a better term, spread the gospel of keto without sounding like a dogmatic prick? And how do I get people to make it their own decision? It's just like when you're, you always got to make it your wife's idea, right? Like, it's like she says she wants to do something, you want to do something, you position it so that it's her idea. Well, it's the same. They're going to send more followers. But the thing is I want people. Hey,
does your wife do this one, Thomas? Is she say, hey, do you want dessert? But it's really she wants dessert, so she wants you to be like, yeah, sure. Yeah, and then they want to split it. And it's like, hey, look, if I'm gonna have fucking dessert, I'm not sharing it with anybody, okay?
Yep. Or usually it's just like, yeah, I'm exhausted. I don't really feel like cooking dinner. Then she plants the seed, and then 20, 30 minutes later, then it will be, then it will plant the seed of getting takeout somewhere, doing. It's always this. But the dessert thing, very common. But yeah, so with Mediterranean keto, it was just about, okay, how do I kind of indoctrinate this idea for people that would normally not even consider keto? So that's kind of the point there. Is like these are people that they've heard about it. Obviously they listen to me, but they maybe they follow me for other advice or for something else. Or there's a ton of people that intermittent fast but don't do keto. I have a large following with that world where they follow me because they like intermittent fasting, but their heads are too wrapped up in that to really think about keto. It's surprisingly a lot of people. So if I introduce it in a different way, then, if that gets 100 more people to give it a shot, then great, because they're looking at it from a different health angle. They're still looking at it from like, oh, all those saturated fats are bad. I can't be doing that. Like, what the heck? So at least if they understand that, hey, here's an entry point for you. But I also do think that it's easy for people to follow because it's really not far off from what people would typically see as just a general healthy diet. You're eating leaner cuts of meat. Yeah. You're eating a little less in the way of, like the chicken thigh, you're eating more of the chicken breast, you're eating more of the lean cuts of steak, a little less in the way of just like the ground meat. So I don't know, it lends itself just as sort of a healthy diet. It doesn't lend itself to someone that's just trying to get started on keto and doesn't know what to do. I just think it's a barrier to entry for people that are just opposed to all the fats generally.
I see you making, all different kinds of crazy coffee, concoctions, and I'm a huge fan of doing that myself. Like sometimes it might take me a bunch of time because I'm like throwing in a scoop of this and throwing in some MCT oil or MCT oil powder or butter or whatever. What are some of your favorite like coffee combinations, and what are they doing for you?
Yeah, a lot of times it's just, at the end of the day, it's just something different, right? Something I always try to put something together that's going to be fun, going to be interesting, and going to have a health benefit. And there's certain things like I wouldn't want to combine, but I'm much more, rather than doing MCT or coconut, like I'm just a big ghee guy. I like double up on the ghee. And again, my content lately has been like I've been preaching ghee like crazy just because there's so much benefit there in terms of just short chain fatty acids. And I think as far as like ketone production and gut health and everything like that, it's just I loaded up on ghee. So with coffee, it's rather than putting coconut oil now, I'll put like 2-3 tablespoons of ghee in there and then mess around with it. And then believe it or not, if you put like a little bit of turmeric in your coffee, it cuts the acidity and it gives it a whole different taste. So take like coffee, take a little bit of turmeric, take a little bit of ghee. You can throw, people will say you need the black pepper thing, but I'm not in it for the curcumin. I'm in it more for the R-turmerone and the other like kind of antioxidant effects of turmeric. So it doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. But the other thing is that turmeric helps the bioavailability of the different fats. So it helps the absorption of the fats that kind of work together kind of synergistically. Mm-hmm. And then again, if it still tastes funny, people, I don't know if I think you can probably mess around with this because I think you and I were talking about it a couple of years ago, adding salt to your coffee changes like the taste of it. It's super weird at first, but it cuts the acidity altogether. So like salt, some ghee, some turmeric, whip it up, add a little bit of stevia if you want to give it a sweet effect, but it's kind of like a mix between golden milk and like coffee. It's just, I don't know, it's weird.
I'm really curious about this because, I think in one of your videos, you talked about how your background or your past, and it's not like you studied all of this in school or something. You had a totally different job. I don't know if it was like selling medical equipment or something like that.
Kind of. So I had an ancillary lab services company. So we were still within the realm of a lot of the stuff that I talk about. So we were providing like the early stage, like salivary cortisol testing and things like that. So like back when like ZRT Labs was in its early stages, like long before people were doing at-home testing and stuff, we were providing testing kits and a lot of the lab work and lab testing stuff to fee-for-service physicians. So basically what that means is back in the early days of like concierge medicine, where doctors would be working with patients independently outside of the insurance continuum, right? So it was like, let's say you had a highly affluent patient that wanted to have an individual doctor and didn't want to have to go through the insurance bullshit. So they would have, their concierge doctor that at the time, like, 2008, 2009, things like that, they were paying, $10,000 a month to basically have access to a doctor, right? It was back in concierge medicine was totally different. And this doctor would work with a small amount of patients. Well, because they were fee for service, they were held to a completely different set of guidelines that were a lot looser, right? So we were able to provide them with the ability for them to do different kinds of testing and blood work and things like that, where they didn't have to bill out insurance and cause a big headache for their patients, right? Well, the doctors that I was working with, when they're working in that capacity, you have to think about how much of a better situation it is in terms of how they keep up to speed with research. Because if you go to McDonald's healthcare systems, like typically what it is, where they're just running you through an assembly line, they don't care. They just want to slap an ICD-9 or ICD-10 code to you. They want to bill it out. They want to bill insurance. They want to collect a check, and they want to, see you and prescribe and boom, run you through. That's the whole idea. at least with concierge medicine, the idea was, well, shit, if this patient doesn't have a positive outcome, he's going to fire my ass, and it's the way that it should be, like, in my opinion, like, right? Like, not that we should be paying 10 grand a month, but I mean, doctors should be somewhat held for like the patient outcome to some degree, not lifestyle factors, but like, if I'm paying you ultimately, even though I'm paying insurance, to help me with something, I don't want you to just give me a symptom masking pill. I want you to help me with my damn issue. And that's the way that these doctors were, because they were working with patients that would kick them to the curb. So the point is that the doctors, the 1,200 doctors that like I managed in that group, they were all doctors that were like-minded like that. So they were on the cutting edge of stuff. And they were guys that were talking about the ketogenic diet in 2009, 2010, before it was ever cool. And so that's how I learned about it. I learned about it through them. And I was, ironically overweight during the early stages of that part of my career. And, they're the ones that kind of like, hey, like, you should try this. Like, you go to the gym, you lift some heavy ass weights, but, you look like a fat bodybuilder. Like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
So it's not like I was just sloppy and obese. And people like, I never try to say that I was, but people, of course, will put words in my mouth. I'm very open with the fact that like, I was still a heavily muscled dude. I just didn't give a shit. I would lift heavy shit 2 days a week. And then I'd go sit on my ass in an office and eat whatever I wanted. That's just because I had some muscle on me doesn't mean that I'm completely, don't know what it was like to be overweight. Same kind of thing with you, right? It's like, Marcus, it's like, you were a power lifter. You were fat in some stages of it. You still knew how to change your body and you knew how you felt. Right. It doesn't change a thing,
And that's what actually had me so curious, because it's like, I was curious about what your learning process is like these days, because obviously you have a very deep understanding of all these different aspects of nutrition and training. And it's not like I don't know if you went to college for this or whatever, but how do you keep up to speed? Because you're always learning and putting out new types of content within this realm of nutrition.
Sure.
What's your process look like? Do you have a team of people that feeds you certain things to maybe read up on, or how do you do it yourself?
Yeah. So I've got like a filtration process. So usually what I will do is I will find something that it has to interest me first. That's the big thing, right? So like, if there's no interest, like, yes, I will get fed some things from people that are either on my team or not my team that will say like, Thomas, this is interesting. You should see this piece of research. Because people don't realize, like, with PubMed and with like a lot of these journals, like if you open up like a journal of metabolism or journal of endocrinology, there's going to be like 100 to 200 new studies that are coming out a month, right? There's constantly new stuff. And if you wanted to create content based on that, you always could. But the truth is, a lot of it ends up being quite lame outcomes that aren't that exciting, that are pretty negligible, that aren't worth really talking about, especially in the nutrition world where it's all nebulous and everything conflicts each other anyway. But then, so I try to find things that I'm passionate about. And then I always try to have a practical application for myself, because it's the only way, like, my content is engaging because I have a practical application, because the only way I can get excited to share it with other people is if I think that I can apply this in my life. And I always have to have a level of self-experimentation and kind of play mad scientist on myself. So it starts with that. And then, my team is pretty simple. I still have a pretty, small team. My research team is about 4 deep. I've got 2 guys that are essentially full-time employees that are Oxford University PhD researchers. So those guys are guys that are like cutting edge on the ketone stuff. And yes, they will be the ones that will be like, hey, this is some pretty cool stuff regarding, NADPH, or this cool stuff with keto. And then from there, I'm like, okay, well, that's usually not enough to do a video, because if I do a video on that, it's going to be a 5-minute explanation of a study. Let's take this content and let's apply it into something practical, and then, kind of weave multiple studies together. But as far as the content that's coming to me, what I will usually do is, say to my right-hand man or a couple of people and be like, this is like what I'm trying to get across and what I've experienced with this particular application. Like, find me as much research on it as you possibly can. So then they find all the research, and they will either send me the studies directly, or, they will go through them and they will try to find, what's going to be interesting enough for me to talk about. And then I end up with, I say Cliff Notes version, but it ends up still being, 15, 20 pages deep of ultimately the conclusion that would normally still be probably 200 pages. And then from there, I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is enough to craft a video, and then I spend a couple of days kind of researching various topics and things like that. So it's a pretty drawn out process, but the point is, like, I'm like, how do I have an extension of myself? How do I use, my assets, my amazing team, to help me just get more of what I want to do, but can't do in a day? And rather than just outsource it to them, I like to read the science. So I'm like, you guys just find the science and bring it to me, because 90% of the job is going down those rabbit holes and finding it. Trust me, they're all out there. The great studies are all out there. They get buried and they get overclouded by, pharma and everything else that pushes the other ones to the top.
Hey, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we can connect again soon and chat more about how we can both end up with literally 0 followers. Maybe we can both go and vote for Trump.
Let's do a live broadcast of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. No, it was fun to hop on here. Thanks for the therapy session. I didn't feel like doing Zoom with my therapist. It just seemed unrealistic. So you guys have been great, giving me an opportunity to vent.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, where can people find you, Thomas?
It's more like, how do they avoid me?
That's right. Yeah.
No, just YouTube's where it's at. I mean, YouTube, Instagram, YouTube for the science content, Instagram if you want to see photos of my family.
Awesome, man. Thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
You guys
Thank
rock.
you.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Shit,
Man.
that was super cool. It's good to hear him rant too, because he's always like, he was even good with his words when he was ranting, but he seems to be very selective of his words, so that he has a particular message, and so it was kind of cool to hear him let loose a couple times there.
Yeah, well, he's such a likable guy, and he would never like say anything inflammatory or say anything to, make anybody like, wow, Thomas is kind of a dick. Like, he would never ever even get close to that. So to hear him just to say like, what he said about like, I can't please everybody, it was like, oh shit, this is awesome.
I was fangirling hard, man. I love Thomas's content, and I love the way he puts forward his ideas too. So I learned a lot from a lot of his videos. So it was so great that you when you sent that text, I was like, hey, yay! I was so excited, bro. I hope we get to talk to him more, because there's a lot of other things I'm curious about his opinion on.
Yeah, I think he tackles everything the same way. I think he is someone that, he finds a point of interest and then he goes after it. He's got a bunch of different businesses. There's a bunch of stuff that he owns that, people don't even know that it's his, and he does a great job with all of it. It's really, really pretty cool. We'll have to go visit him in Los Angeles whenever we get an opportunity to start moving around again. Because he's got a studio down there. So that would be really cool to kind of check out the whole operation, meet his team and all that stuff.
Yeah, I like hearing that he has like a research team too. That's freaking cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was in LA. Although, I thought he was somewhere in the Midwest. But okay.
Yeah, he's kind of in the Los Angeles area. Yeah.
Yeah, we met him when you were down in Malibu for a month. He stopped by. That was cool.
Yeah, he has a lot of amazing content, and anyone that hasn't checked his stuff out, you really should, because you want to know. The questions that we get asked, he's answered them a million times over, in terms of like artificial sweeteners, in terms of natural sweeteners. I mean, he's got videos that breaks down, why you may want to avoid aspartame. He's got videos on, and he just gives you the facts. He just flat out says, this is the way this is. And, I don't particularly choose to eat some of those types of foods, but these are the things that they can do to you or do for you. And he just spells it all out for you. So that's what attracted me to watching his videos, probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. And the cool thing about him too, it's like, you remember when Cal Dietz said, what was it? His favorite 6 words are like, I'd like to change my answer. Well, like Thomas, it's not like you see this a lot, right? But there are some videos where he said, like, I did reference this in the past, but then he kind of adjusts what he's talked about. So he's not one to like exactly dogmatically stick to an idea because he said it in the past. He's always, trying to be on the cutting edge, looking up new things, researching new things. And that's why I think he's a pretty trustworthy guy.
He was a little bit more laxed with some of the fast food stuff than I thought he would be. I thought he would be, I thought he would be all upset. But he was pretty chill about it. I think the truth is that no one really knows. It wouldn't surprise me if those foods are full of junk. It wouldn't surprise me if there's, grains, in the burgers or something like that. I wouldn't shock me at all, because, they're trying to make the best profit that they can. So it wouldn't surprise me if it had something cheap in there, but I haven't come across anyone that has, told me anything otherwise. And then I've been getting questions about, people have been asking about like whether meat gets injected with like dye and stuff to keep it certain colors. And to my understanding, like that is definitely not true, in terms of like steak, ground beef, chicken, those types of things. Now it might be the case with, like sliced meats, like cold meats, like that are in like a deli. They might mess with those because maybe they get to be weird colors. But in terms of like, yeah, I don't even know. And so I kind of get a little frustrated sometimes when I hear people talk about quality of meat, because I don't even know, like here in the United States, I don't even know where you would go to find like poor quality meat. I don't know what their definition is, because it's either like grass fed or grain fed. The only thing I can think of, that people might want to be mindful of is that, when something is grass fed and grass finished, a lot of times that has less of an impact on the environment. But even that is like just opening up another, giant can of worms that I personally don't know anything about. But Paul Saladino talks about it quite a bit. There's regenerative agriculture, and if you care about the planet and you want to make an effort towards that, then you can find out, farms that utilize that technique, and then you can put your money towards that if that's what you believe in.
Yeah, in regards to the like the dyes and stuff, because like I know I asked you about that, I think like a couple months ago too, because I remember like if you look at like a pack of like steaks and they're like layered on top of each other, when you peel off a layer, wherever that top one was touching, the bottom one will be a different color versus like around the whole rest of the steak. I'll try to take if I end up buying something, I'll take a picture, but it almost looks like there was like red dye spray painted over the top, and then wherever the meat was covering, the one below it didn't catch that paint, that spray paint. And then when you remove it, you can see like, oh, this is like a different color. But I have no idea. I think Joe Rogan talked about it a couple years ago too, and I think maybe that's probably what planted the seed in my head that like store bought meats actually do, inject some color. But I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me either. They're trying to make a profit. They're trying to sell you something. But I think that meat, it has to do with like oxidation and stuff like that sometimes. So sometimes that's why they put those other packets in there. They put those weird little things in between them. I think that might have something to do with it. But again, I'm not really 100% sure. It wouldn't surprise me if they just used like the blood from the meat. Like what that would make the most sense is like to utilize that. But what process would that be? And that's like another disgusting thing to think about,
Yeah. Just don't get meat from like Walmart shipping containers. Andrew, you understand that reference?
Mm-hmm. I know. I want to finish the whole series, but we started watching Tiger King with Jasmine last night, and when that girl gets her arm bit off or whatever, she was like, "I'm out." Like, nope. Mm-hmm. She didn't want to watch anymore.
Yeah.
Our country is pathetic.
All right. Tell us why. What do you mean? What's going on?
That show is just such trash. It's unbelievable.
Wait, did you watch some of it?
Yeah, I watched way too much of it. It is so bad. It is like, there's not one redeeming quality of that. That show.
Wait, do you find it entertaining at least?
No, not really. No.
Dude, what's crazy? So like we rewatched the first episode so she can kind of get an idea of what's going on. And I'm like, dude, the memes write themselves. And it's like, no wonder why we're seeing so much on social media, because after watching it with like just a different pair of eyes, I'm like, oh my God, that would be hilarious. Like I need to make X, Y, and Z memes now.
One thing I would say that I found interesting is that, the main guy, Joe Exotic, right? Like the one thing I find pretty fascinating about it is he obviously like he fucking lost his mind, or maybe he never had it, or maybe he's bipolar or something. Like the guy's he's got a screw loose for sure. But what was really interesting, it's like I know that everyone's kind of making a mockery of him in a way. He's got the mullet and stuff like that. So people are putting their face on his face and things like that. But I'm kind of laughing because I'm like, those people that are making fun of this guy, they wish they could be half as successful as this motherfucker. He's got nearly 200 fucking tigers. Each one of them costs $3,000. You have any idea how much it costs and how much, like, he has all this land? Like, he had a lot of crazy stuff. And not only that, like, who knows about like the finances that he had? He had everything that he wanted. You know, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that he was doing or saying, but I was just thinking, man, this guy created his own little fucking paradise, and here's people are, you know, talking shit and making fun of him, and he's like a parody. And I'm like, he really shouldn't be a parody. I think people should be kind of looking at him like, hey, man, he did exactly what he wanted to do. Again, his morals and values and stuff, like, there's a lot of shit that's way off base with things that I think or things that I do, but I appreciated that he had a lot of hustle behind him.
Yeah, and on top of that, he had 2 husbands.
That's right.
Yeah.
I know. I like he had multiple husbands, and the other dude had multiple wives, right? Yeah, that was weird.
You know, guys, watching this documentary honestly made me realize how much I need to how much I can't trust documentaries. And let me tell you why. Like, the series was 6 hours. I mean, it was like, 6 episodes? So 6 hours, right? But the person who made this documentary had like 7 years of footage. Okay. Which he put into 6 hours. And the footage, what it does is it makes you, number one, you root for Joe Exotic. At the end of the documentary, like, most people are rooting for Joe. They still like him, even though he had a lot of weird stuff. They're like, why is Joe in jail? You hate Carol Baskins and you think that she killed her husband, right? Doc Antle, you kind of don't like him, you know, or you kind of like him, but it frames it that way. And, you know, I was thinking about this. I'm like, there's a clip out there of like Joe Exotic saying, someone said something about the N-word, right? And he's like, wait, why can't you say that, right? And I'm not like, he said, why can't you say the N-word? So it's not like he even said the N-word. But what I'm getting at here is that you're framed to think a certain way about all these characters. And if you look at the internet, people are trying to go after Carol Baskins. Like, it really pushes you in one direction. So like now that I'm like thinking about this and I look at other documentaries, I'm just like, I need to take everything I watch in a lot of these documentaries with a grain of salt, because the guy or the documentarian has an agenda for what they're trying to make you think. You know?
So is this going to keep you away from going vegan from Game Changers?
But exactly, Game Changers is another thing. Mm-hmm. Like there's an agenda behind every type of documentary. You just gotta take a bit from it.
That's why people don't want to watch Michael Moore's stuff, but he has outstanding documentaries. But then they're full of too many of his own thoughts, and then people are kind of turned off, you know, by it, unfortunately, because he does present good information, but people are understanding of the fact, like, hey, he's going to really twist this his way, and I don't even want to know what the hell he thinks, because I don't want my mind being bent that way, you know, being kind of steered that way.
He did the McDonald's one, right? Was the McDonald's one he did?
No. He did like Bowling for Columbine and those types of movies. I don't know if you've ever seen those.
I don't think I have. I mean, my ignorance is running high right now, so I need to check it out.
Fahrenheit 9/11. The movies are fucking amazing. They're so good.
I think I was young when that came out, right? Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yeah, he's got, and you know, he paints the picture the way he wants to paint a picture, but he talks about, you know, how they had information about planes being driven into buildings, and he talks about, like, you know, in documentaries they do a good job of like unveiling like the irony, you know, and they're like, he says perhaps the title of the book was too complicated for, was it Bush was the president at the time? Perhaps the title of the book was too complicated for President Bush to understand what was inside the book itself. It's a giant book. Mm-hmm. It's like 3 times the size of a Bible. And it said, using planes as weapons of mass destruction. It's like the title of this, giant thing that they had. And who knows, like, if that's even a real thing or whatever, but like, that's what he shows you in the movie. There's a lot of crazy stuff in those documentaries, but you're right. They're going to edit it. And, reality TV shows are that way. If they took us three, they would take our personalities and magnify them, times 100, and that's what everyone would see. They would, and even if they couldn't get it out of us all the time, they would just edit it that way.
Yeah,
they're always going to push a narrative. What isn't there a connection between Fahrenheit 9/11, Bowling for Columbine, and Bigger, Stronger, Faster?
The guy that you got, I think you ended up meeting, Kurt. He came to the gym a while back. Kurt was one of the producers and one of the editors. Yeah, he worked on all that. That stuff. But yeah, you're really trying to make a real story out of it. People don't want to know that the truth lies in the middle. They want to see the extremes. They want to see, something one way or the other. They want to see something really, really crazy. And I think one thing that documentary did do, the Tiger King, is it just showed, like, I don't think anybody knows anything about any of that. And so it exposed you to a world where you're like, what? People own these things? Like, and it's like fairly common. Mm-hmm. It's pretty, it's pretty crazy. And then what do you do about it? Like, what do you do about something that's already going on? And the answer is nothing. You can't do much about it. Yeah. I don't know what you would do. And then it's just hard. It's hard to like regulate. It's hard to regulate shit like that. And then people are just, I always find it fascinating that there's no degrees to stuff. And I always feel that there is degrees to stuff, but I think that somebody would be like, oh, well, what's the difference between owning that and a cat? And it's the same thing with like guns and stuff. And it's like, I don't know if you saw the weapons that the guy has. Like, yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I'm all for protecting yourself, and like, I don't want too much government intervention, but man, do we need weapons like that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe the world will come down to that, but like, I don't want to live in that world anyway. If it does come down to that,
yeah,
I had some crazy ass weapons.
He did explosives too. It was. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's more like a location type thing too, like
Florida area.
Yeah,
those types of yeah.
That's
no rules.
That shit's not happening in Davis, California.
It might be good. Might be good to talk to like John Bartlow. He might be good to talk to. John's out in Vegas and he works for a gun company. Been a friend of mine for a while. Bodybuilder. He's been on the show before.
Falcon.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he used to be with that whatever that company is. I forget what the name of the company's with now, but he might be good to have on the podcast because there is kind of a fear of like that this is like an apocalypse, and it might be interesting to kind of get some of his take on it. And I mean, the amount of guns that he has, it was like his whole truck bed. It's not a guy that you want to. It's not a guy that you want to try to like run off the road. His entire truck bed is like low because of the amount of like weapons that he has in there. Fucking crazy.
Yeah, Jeez. And then I think like the first like couple sentences after meeting him, he's just like, I hate California. I got to travel with knives instead of guns. Like, oh, okay, shit.
Oh man.
He was pulling guns out of everywhere. He had like underneath his like seat, and like he was showing me all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm like very uncomfortable around guns. I'm not familiar with them. I don't have any issue with them. I haven't used one that much. I've only gone shooting like 3 times. So they just scare me. I'm like, I don't know how to use that thing. I know it can, kill somebody, and I don't want to fuck anything up.
Yeah. And have you ever admitted that in front of other gun people that like guns scare you?
Yeah. And they've actually, they've always been really good. They're like, they should scare you, like people that are, I have found that many, many times over that people are way different than the perception that you hear a lot of times, these are not people that are taking their guns like Joe Exotic and shooting them in the air. You know, these are people that are like, every time you put the gun down, you know, you put it down, you face it away from you. You don't ever point it anywhere at anybody ever. You know, shit like that. I don't even know the rules, so I'm going to say them all wrong, but they want you to hold the gun a certain way, and you're not putting your finger on the trigger unless you're ready to like pull it and stuff like that. Like, they're super respectful. And when they walk you through it, it makes you a lot more calm. You're like, oh, okay, well, if I handle this responsibly, then the weapon does nothing, actually, because I control it. I'm in control of it. I'm utilizing. I put my hands on it and I determine what it does. You know.
Yeah.
People might think these rules are just useless, but like, yeah, like the fear of it, it's very real. Because just point and a little bit of pressure, someone's life is gone. Just that much pressure.
A slight miscalculation, and that's it.
Right?
Yeah, didn't the guy in Tiger King, he just like blew his brains out or something, right?
Yeah,
and I think he thought he was fucking around, right?
Haven't gotten
I don't know
to that
if he
episode.
intentionally did it or not. Oh shit! Coming next.
Yeah, something to look forward to. Yeah, when I've admitted that, like, around other dudes, I'm just like, yeah, I would like to learn how to shoot. I love shooting the bow. Like, that's been like, I miss that. But when it comes to guns, I'm just like, yeah, it scares the shit out of me. Like, nah, you'll be fine. It's not even that bad. I'm like, well, you say that because you've done that, you know. But do you remember the first time you got behind the wheel? Like, yeah, you're probably excited, but you're also nervous. So. Yeah. So I would like to, especially with what is going on. Sorry about my dogs again. My fiance's father, he's a retired police officer, so he does have some guns in his house, and he's like, yeah, I can, drop some off. I'm like, Dad, like, I wouldn't know what to do with it, so let's go shooting.
Yeah, don't drop them off.
Yeah, for real. He was joking, of course. He would never just like, here you go. Yeah. But he was just like, yeah, you guys need ammo. Like, he's literally joking, so I don't want anybody to get all upset. But I was like, no, like, yeah, it would be cool to hit up the shooting range and like, so I can learn how to like literally everything from start to finish. Like, you see like the like military movies where they're taking apart their weapons and cleaning them and stuff, and I would love to learn all of that. It's just, like they do scare the shit out of me.
When you go, let me know, or I'll schedule something and we'll go together.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun, man. A little power project shootout.
That would be awesome.
Yep.
I got to go and hit up a big old walk, and haven't done my 10-minute squat yet today, so I got to make sure I get that in there. Andrew, can you take us on out of here, buddy?
Absolutely. Thank you guys for checking out this episode. You just heard Thomas DeLauer talking about low carb, keto, whatever the heck Mediterranean keto stuff is. If you guys want to get a jump on your ketogenic diet, please head over to perfectketo.com/power25. Ooh, music. I like it. At checkout, enter
I'm at a piano.
Nice. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject for 25% off of any orders of $99 or more. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. This is awesome. I am Andrew Z on Instagram. Nsima, when you're not dancing, what else are you doing?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Like Mark said, y'all should be hitting up these 10-minute squats every single day. And Mark has posted some content, I think, on his YouTube channel and on Instagram that explains some super easy ways that you can build up to it. So make sure to check that shit out, guys. Mark.
All right, peeps. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness never a strength. Catch y'all later.
Peace.
Thank you.